drop off and we'll like rejoin. So this is Courtney, and if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your practice, that would be fabulous.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. I am Courtney Satow, and I am a pre-postnatal specialist, and I teach yoga weekly for prenatal, but postnatal is always welcome.
Hold on, I can't hear you.
Was I blocking? Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
I can now.
Okay. I think it was sitting down on the wrong spot. Let me
No worries.
start over again. So I teach pre-postnatal yoga, and I'm also a birth doula. So I feel like the two just really go hand in hand, because a lot of that I work with my clients for if I'm their doula is a lot of the movements and the mindset that we practice in yoga class each week. So I really felt this calling of doing this talk with you, because I think there's stuff that I don't always have time to get to, or to really go into detail about core and pelvic floor in class. Sure. And so I really feel like the two of us kind of teaming up for this is great, because it also relates to birth and how we get through that second phase of labor and pushing our babies out, and the recovery process as well.
Absolutely. And for people who don't know Courtney or myself, or maybe not know, we're both part of like the South Bay Birth Fit community. And so we have a pretty strong group of practitioners in the South Bay, Los Angeles area that encompass pre and postnatal yoga, doulas, physical therapy for pelvic floor, midwives, psychologists, what am I missing? Chiropractors. Who else am I missing that's kind of in our group? So it's really nice because we can all work together. Hypnotherapy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, which is lovely because, no. And, I think we all really embrace this team approach, which is really great, because things that you do, I might not have time for, and vice versa, which is great.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the principles of like what you do in terms of yoga, and how you kind of see yoga and like being a birth doula, and like those mindset and connection pieces that you like to talk to your clients about.
Yeah. So obviously yoga is movement and breath based. And when it comes to labor and birth, it is movement and breath based. And so when the two go hand in hand, I really try to incorporate the mindset aspect of all of this into class, and talking about the importance of getting yourself into that zone. When we do lunges for a substantial amount of time, I talk to them about closing their eyes and trying to get lost in the movement, and not so thinking, how much longer are we going to do this for? And things like, how much longer are we going to hold this for? Sure. Doing certain movements, like when we're in a warrior two, and have them notice like, wow, I'm able to hold this a lot longer when I'm moving my arms like this up and down, and just able to kind of get themselves into that almost labor land, like when we are in labor, so that we can kind of understand the mind-body connection in that sense. We also do keep-ups during class, which is a Kundalini exercise that is really about conquering your times when you are in discomfort, and trying to find that comfort in discomfort, if you will. Yeah. So a keep-up is holding your arms up and doing movements with flipping the hands up and down, or doing arm circles, and trying to get them to a place where they just surrender to what is. Because really, isn't that like what it's all about? It's just surrendering to what is. We can't change anything. Of course, we can do movements and comfort measures to make things feel better when in labor, but ultimately we're surrendering to what is. And yeah, and really just trying to say like, I'm going to get through this. It is temporary. I know it doesn't feel wonderful. It doesn't feel good, but this is temporary and such a small piece of the puzzle. And while nothing can compare to true childbirth, it's really just prepping your mindset and helping you to get into this place where you just feel really ready to go into it.
And I think that that's like a super great point, is that we talk a lot about getting uncomfortable, or getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And we talk about this a lot. Like, I know you talk about it, your practice, Nicole, who we'll meet with later, talks about it. I talk about this. It's like, we all have to kind of get to this point where you're able to accept that you're uncomfortable, but that this is a transitory, temporary thing and that you will get through it.
Yeah.
It's like this is like one day of your life or maybe 2 days of your life if you're unlucky, but that this is temporary and that at the end of the day, when you're holding your baby, like this is a big, there's going to be like this incredible joy at the end of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And other aspects of class that really do bring you into feeling prepared for when that day comes that you do go into labor is the relaxation rhythm and ritual piece of the puzzle. So
Sure.
when you are in labor, um, obviously you don't want bright lights. You don't want people around you that are talking. You don't want to be looking around and seeing what's going on as you're having a surge. You want to put yourself in an environment, or we call it in yoga a bhavana, which is kind of a mood that brings you into a relaxed state. So soft music, soft lighting, candles, only people there that make you feel relaxed. Like, I love my
Sure.
mom more than anything in the world, but she's not, she wasn't and will not be with me
Not
when
there
I
right
am in
now.
labor if I have another baby.
Yeah.
She just makes me stressed out. So like knowing like the people that you are inviting into your space need to put you into that relaxed state.
Sure. And I'm sure you deal with like essential oils and things like that as well. And
Yep. Essential oils, lighting. I bring tea lights to clients' homes. Obviously, when they are at home, they can light real candles, but at the hospital, not a good idea.
right.
But yeah, so then the ritual aspect is doing things over and over again that you are able to get into a groove and do it for as long as you're able to. So in yoga, when we do a certain lunge back and forth, they're doing it for a pretty substantial amount of time. And like I said, I encourage them to close their eyes and just continue to move and try not to look around and see what everyone else is doing. It's like, we're here,
Sure.
we're doing it. And when you're in labor, it's the same thing. You're creating rituals. So whether it be sitting on a birthing ball and doing hip circles, or you're walking around your home and as soon as you get you are putting your arms around your partner or your doula and letting them hold you up, or you're in a squat, or you're in child's pose. So whatever movement or position or ritual that you pick, you do it as long as you can until it's no longer working anymore. And so these are things that we talk about in class and how it relates to labor and birth. Um, and lastly, rhythm kind of goes without saying, like the rhythm of how your breath connects to your body. When you
Sure.
move forward, you are taking an inhale. As you move backward, you are exhaling. As you come up, you are inhaling. As you come down, you are exhaling, So it makes a world of difference to really have that connection to your breath as you move versus just trying to remember to breathe.
Sure.
And sometimes you definitely need those reminders from your partner or your doula when you are in labor because you're kind of off in another world. But I think having a consistent yoga practice makes a world of difference and makes you so much more comfortable with your breath and really using that as a tool.
And I think that that's really huge. A lot of, mamas that I work with who are involved in a yoga practice pre-birth, they have a lot better control and kind of integration of like having control and sense of like where their pelvic floor is and how
Yeah.
to breathe down into that diaphragm and pelvic floor without having to do a Valsalva maneuver and gaining a certain amount of strength that we need to actually produce contractions that are effective and moving a birth forward. And that's really like something people ask a lot is like, well, how do I like contract? And there's a certain amount of like surrendering and like letting go. Because if
Yeah.
you hold on too tight, then like you're not going to be able to get like dilation. Baby's not going to be able to drop down. But then when it comes to actually pushing, we need to be able to control, like connect with that part of our body, right? And
Yeah.
connect with our breath and be able to move those things together, which is very yoga-esque, which I think is a great tool for people to be able to use. And I encourage my new moms always to practice some sort of a prenatal yoga program.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something I also wanted to be like more of the moderator here to ask you these questions because women in class go to yoga classes and they're told to do Kegels, or they go to their doctor and they're like, oh, you feel weak down here, do Kegels, or
Yeah.
whatever it may be. And through BirthFit, I learned that Kegels aren't necessarily a functional thing unless it's absolutely necessary for someone to do if they have a weak pelvic floor. And so in class, I talk to women about that when they ask those questions. And while I'd like to sit there for 30 minutes and explain all
Yeah.
of these things, you really don't know your personal, you know, physiology of your body unless you have gone to a pelvic floor PT and had them internally check you to see how high tone your pelvic floor is,
Mm-hmm.
how disconnected you are from it, or possibly how weak it is in the moment.
Sure.
And I think there's something really to be said for women that are going to pelvic floor PT during pregnancy and how different it is for their outcomes after they, or when they get into that place where they are birthing their baby.
And
Been to
obviously, I don't
births where,
disagree with that. So,
yeah, I have been to a birth where, and myself included, a very long pushing phase.
hmm
And I did not go to pelvic floor PT when I was pregnant, and I 100% will if I am blessed to have another.
sure.
But been to births where, you know, the pushing phase was extremely long, and doctor
hmm
said your pelvic floor, I think, is just extremely high tone
hmm
based on what your exercise regimen is. So, like a lot of athletes, you know, they may have a very quick labor and getting to that point of being complete, but maybe having a hard time to surrender and allow their pelvic floor to fully relax, you know?
Sure. And it might
So
be a
it,
really long time to get that cervix to actually open and dilate because they're just kind of holding on. And we hear about that a lot with like their people, especially when people have like an induced birth or maybe are given medication that like their bodies just aren't cooperating with the medication. But it's like if your tone level and if like your stress and anxiety and your body's holding like way up here and we're in
yeah,
this like really heightened stage of like alert, tone. And when I say that, I mean like it's that CNS that's like really amped up. If you can't bring that level down and you can't let your body relax, our body is going to stay tight and held together. And so it's
yeah,
something that we really rely on people working with doulas and yoga and whatnot to be able to kind of bring that down. And over the last couple of weeks, we've been doing a lot of talk about breath work, and we're going to continue on that topic with using breath work to help to tone down your CNS and using breathwork tools in labor situations to help to get you to that point where you can work through the pain and you can work on allowing the body to relax despite the discomfort and using other tools in conjunction with breathwork to help us to get to that point.
yeah, yeah.
So,
And in class and with my clients, we say as above is below. If your face is very relaxed and you are, and your jaw, you know,
mhm,
and stuff, like one of the key things I do with my clients while they're in labor is just a gentle touch to their face.
sure,
Relax. If they're, you know, like tensing everything up,
like
like,
that.
yeah, you know, um, you don't want to see the labor face. But the more relaxed and calm you can make yourself look, even though your internal environment may be feeling like you are in distress,
Yeah,
the more that you can allow your, you know, really try to let yourself follow that as above is below. If you relax your face, you relax your pelvic floor. If you relax your face, you're relaxing your body. When your body is
hmm
relaxed, you're able to cope with each surge so much
sure.
better than if you're fighting against it.
And
So,
that's something that's an interesting thing. And I love that statement, like as above is below, because one of the things that we know is that there is a lot of correlation between jaw tightness, like TMJ problems, diaphragmatic tightness, and pelvic floor tension. And so a lot of people that we see that have TMJ problems, and I'm totally speaking about myself, by the way, right now, TMJ problems, then they have pelvic floor increased tension. And so it's like you have to treat both because this is very much a total body tension issue. It's not just one area.
yeah, yeah,
So, and for people who might be watching this that are like, what on earth are they talking about? When we're told to do Kegels, the Kegel is a pelvic floor contraction. And this is what we hear about like in like common media a lot is we need to be doing these Kegels all the time. Well, what common media isn't really talking to us about is that we have to be able to fully relax that pelvic floor as well. And I love using that biceps as an example because it's really readily available and also like totally not non-threatening. But like if you think about your pelvic floor, which is a muscular group, just like our biceps, which is a muscular group, we have to be able to fully contract that pelvic floor, but we have to be able to fully relax it. You know, if you imagine a trainer telling you to do a bunch of bicep curls and you're kind of up here all the time, number one, it probably isn't going to feel great. Number two, it's not very effective in terms of power. You're going to fatigue out really fast. So we have women who come in who are really, really strong and they're really athletic, but their pelvic floors are like stuck here all the time. And so we actually have to teach them first how to fully like extend and relax that pelvic floor before we're teaching them how to do some type of like a Kegel type of a contraction. Because in birth, we need both. We need to be able to have pelvic floor relaxation, but we also need to be able to have contraction, and we need to be able to have multiple phases. Because as we know, labor can be really long, and we need to have power endurance at certain points, but we also need to be able to relax and have a certain amount of softness at certain points that I think that a lot of people forget that that's part of the deal.
Yeah, 100%. And especially from someone like me who, I mean, I went to school for exercise science. Like I have a degree in kinesiology. I have done a 100-hour or 200-hour yoga teacher training, 100-hour like for this, you know, birth fit, all that stuff. And then going into postpartum and having some issues and going to pelvic floor PT and having her do the internal exam and tell me, okay, do a Kegel, now relax. And she's like, now relax, now relax. And I'm like, I am. And she's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
So it's very humbling, I think, as someone that felt like they really knew a lot, and it kind of brought me back down to earth to be like, there's so much more that I need to learn, and to also like really, really respect your, you know, what you all do at your practice. And I want women to really know that this is a necessity. It's not, I have an issue, so now I need to go. It should be,
right.
Yeah.
Preventative as well as, yeah. And for people who are pregnant, like just so you know, like, you know, we see women who are pregnant all the time, and we usually are keeping therapies mostly the second and third trimester. You know, as we all know, you know, miscarriage rates in first trimester for like absolutely no discernible reason are really high. So we don't do a lot of manual therapies like in first trimester. We let women get through that period. And then once we're in second and third, then we can start doing more manual exams and therapy. But even despite like manual therapies, there's external things that we can be doing to help to not only evaluate kind of what people's tone levels are like, but also teach people about it. So we can use external biofeedback, which puts no electrical current in the baby whatsoever. It's just reading your muscular output. We can use that to help to teach people how to connect with their pelvic floor musculature without anything internal at all. And with that, you can see literally on a visual screen, are you relaxing? You know, like this is off. If you're always over here, it's like your tone is way up here. So we have to teach people how to bring their tone down. And that may be a combination of positioning, breath work, mindset practice to bring that down. And that's a big thing that we do a lot. We also are dealing a lot with posture and breath work. And so if people aren't able to breathe effectively, that's something that we teach. If people are coming in with a lot of pain, we do things like teaching pelvic to rib cage positioning. We might implement something like an SI joint belt. And people have differing opinions on SI joint belts, but the way that I see it is this, is like that we know that a fetus is feeling what we are feeling. So if we're stressed and in this heightened level of pain, it's only going to put our baby who's growing inside of us in like a more uncomfortable, distressed state. And people are always worried about if I use this like external implement, am I going to have reliance on it? And the answer is no. Like in a case of an SI joint belt, as soon as baby is out, your like need for the SI joint automatically goes away. Right. So using tools like that as a temporary thing, or taping techniques as a temporary way to help to alleviate pressures on the body, I think can be really helpful.
For sure. And I know already recently, like women that I have referred to your practice have just said such incredible things, from someone that was pregnant with twins saying that she couldn't walk because of pubic symphysis dysfunction, which I had as well, and it's absolutely excruciating, and being able to walk the next day, like with
Yeah.
almost no pain.
And just to speak
Just
to that, like I know who you're talking about, and she saw Dr. Claire too. So
yeah,
I'm obviously at the practice, and just for people who are on here to know, like I have a colleague, Dr. Claire, who also practices with me and does the exact same things, orthopedic and pelvic health. And there's only available for we can only do two people on here at a time, but she's a delight. So if you can't get in to see me, like see her because she's
yeah.
fabulous.
Yeah, I've heard great things, and I reached out to her and was like, I can't wait to meet you when all of this is over.
You'll love
uh,
her. She's so
yeah,
cute.
yeah. But like speaking to that, so that's like going for pain and having it be
Mhm.
addressed, having it be something that you can take away and be able to practice to try to prevent things from coming back, because it may be just relying on one area of your body and not utilizing something else enough. Like I was told by a birth fit chiropractor, Julia Moen, like
Mhm.
my glute med was not strong enough. So that's why I was having issues with my pubic symphysis, you know, like
Sure.
things I never think of. So I think it's just really cool to be able to have somewhere that you can go and get these answers and not just feel like it's part of my pregnancy, you know?
Definitely. And, you know, for someone like yourself, like you are very connected to your body, to your, you know, to your mental state. And it's something that's important for all of us to remember is that, like, as much as I know about bodies and the body, sometimes I can't tell what's going on with my own body because I can't get into a position of relaxation enough to like self-assess. And I think that goes for all of us. We might really think that we're connected with ourselves and know our bodies, but sometimes you need somebody else to intervene and you need somebody to come in and help you because we can't do everything ourselves. So, kind of allowing for that in our lives, I think, is important.
Yeah. And having resources like yourself or me or Nicole, who will come on after, but like Natalie just said, having your OB appointment today and mentioned pelvic issues that she's been having, and her doctor said that it wouldn't do much until after pregnancy to go see a
Yeah.
pelvic floor PT. And OBs unfortunately don't have the extent of training as you guys do in that area. They can diagnose, but they don't know to the extent of what to tell someone to do. And that's what's hard, because
Yeah.
even postpartum, you know, to become your own advocate, but to also have people
Hmm.
around you that know what's up. Because like for me to go to my OB at that 6 week mark, which is like, okay, 6 weeks, all of a sudden you're magically healed.
Right.
Some people are, you know, had a very easy recovery and feel great before 6 weeks, and some people need much longer. But for me, for going to my appointment and having her say everything looks good, and me coming home after that and wished I would have said something, but I'm like, no, something's wrong. I feel
Right.
like there's something going on down there. And then going back and having her check again, and I had a bladder prolapse, you
Sure.
know? And I think, unfortunately, a huge population of women that are postpartum wouldn't have gone back and asked for a recheck,
Hmm.
or wouldn't seek out treatment unless it was recommended by an OB, you know?
Yeah. And that's a really important point is that, you know, for people to realize that physical therapists as a whole aren't trained in pelvic floor PT. Like this is a specialty above and beyond our like doctoral level training. Graduate
Yeah.
with a doctorate, we had like, and when I went to school, I had one class for 1 hour on one day on pelvic floor. That was it. That
Yeah.
was it. And from how I understand
Yeah.
it, people who are graduating much more recently than I did aren't getting a lot more than that by and large. So this is a specialization above and beyond. The problem is that other practitioners that you might be seeing, whether it's an OBGYN, a urologist, a urogynecologist, a you know, an internal medicine doctor, your general practitioner, those doctors, as much as they know, they may not know that this exists. And it's something that the more I do these talks and talks to people, I'm hoping that the word, like I'm helping to do my part to kind of get the word out that we exist because a lot of times people just don't know it's a thing. And so they don't know
Yeah.
that that's something that they can refer to.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
and that might be,
So,
you know, with Natalie's OB, you know, that she had the appointment today, maybe that OB has never worked closely with a PT before to know like what we can do for moms. Or maybe they had you know, some new moms that maybe went to pelvic floor PT once or twice and didn't really continue to follow up. So maybe they didn't have like a super desirable response, because I tell people all this time, like it's a two-way street. Like I can teach you the tools, but you have to participate. So if they've had that
Yeah.
happen, then you can kind of get a bad taste in your mouth, and maybe they don't refer out to it, which is an unfortunate thing. And hopefully I can connect with that OB and be like, hi, like I'd love to work with you and tell you what we do. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Natalie set that up. Oh,
No, it's true.
well,
But
this has been
that's what you
delightful.
really, yeah. I know. Thank you for chatting with me, and y'all
Oh my
stay
gosh,
on so that
anytime.
you can hear from people. So,
Yeah, so
bye.
we'll switch over. And again, if your mom has come to you, Courtney, after this, and if they're wanting to see more, do more, we can set up another one of these, can set up a Zoom call for anyone who's watching this. Like we're doing every sort of free educational experience we can right now. So whether you want to set up a Zoom call for a new mom group or a pregnancy group, your group of yoga ladies wants to learn, like we're happy. Like we just want to like be giving people as much education as we can. And during this time especially, we're trying to really reach out to people because we realize people are feeling kind of underserved. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
well,
Thank
we'll,
you.
we'll talk
Nice
soon.
talking,
I'm going to
everyone.
stay on, and then Nicole, I'm going to add you. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Hang tight, guys. I'm just waiting. Yeah.
Ooh, that's
God,
exciting.
that was so much more seamless than I thought it was going to be.
I had
Honestly,
no
I was like,
idea it was going to
okay.
be like that.
Nope. I was like, we're going to figure this out right
Awesome.
now. So, hi. So, obviously, we just wrapped
Hey,
up
how
with
are you?
Courtney. Good. How are
Yes, I
you?
watched the whole thing. Awesome. Awesome.
Well, if you could introduce yourself so everyone knows kind of like what we're switching gears to, that would be fabulous.
Okay. I'm Nicole Foster. I am the leader for BirthFit South Bay. And I don't know if you guys covered a little bit of BirthFit in the beginning, but
Not much.
okay. So BirthFit's just a movement to, in a real quick nutshell, a movement to support and educate and empower women through preconception, pregnancy, and postpartum. And I know today we're talking about our postpartum journey because we talked to Courtney about prenatal.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I'm just here to talk about our postpartum journey, mainly fitness, but the BirthFit pillars are all so important in their fitness, nutrition, mindset, and connection. So,
Yes.
I just like ask me anything. Let's get down to it.
Yeah. So Courtney and I
What do
talked
you
a
think?
little bit about mindset before.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about like connection before, but
Hmm.
we were talking about it in like the sense of like a prenatal up to birth sense. So let's kind of start there and let's start talking about like those pillars from like your perspective, but now starting at birth and then into the postpartum.
Yeah. So, I wholeheartedly believe that every pregnant woman should start planning and preparing for their postpartum journey while they are pregnant,
Hmm.
um, and just kind of getting a feel for that because I think that most women prepare so much for their birth, so much for their pregnancy, and then postpartum comes, and then it's like they're rocked because there's no preparation. And I
Sure.
heard an analogy before that a therapist once said that it's kind of like planning for your wedding day and putting everything into it and not giving a shit about your marriage. So I like that analogy because postpartum is the rest of it, right?
Sure.
Yeah, so um, I think the best thing, someone that's pregnant, if you're on the call right now and you're not even, don't even have your baby yet, know that this is for you. And if you're postpartum, yes, please join in. Um, so the biggest takeaway for postpartum is, I think adapting the mindset that slow is fast. I know you guys covered like the whole 6 week appointment after you have your baby, and
Mm,
it's like people think, oh yeah, after 6 weeks, I'm not postpartum anymore. And six
nope.
weeks is just this little itty bitty, teeny tiny bit. Like right now, I have a 10-month-old and I'm like absolutely still postpartum, you know?
Yes.
And realistically, you're always going to be postpartum because you
Mhm.
you had a baby, right? Um, So anything you want to do to make that journey, you know, easier, more supported, there's no time frame for it, right? I work with a lot of women who like prenatally who think like,
Mhm.
okay, once I'm 3 months, like I'm good. I should be on top of it. Like back to
Back to
my,
work.
back to work, back to
Yep.
like running or doing whatever.
Have my
Um,
body back.
have your body back, your
Hmm.
pre-baby body back. Yeah. And it's, I mean, I wish like if you can do that, yes, but like I see more that there's so much stress put on the mom to get there when it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be, and it's not realistic at all, like at all.
No. And where we live specifically, like I think living in Los Angeles, there's like this certain like inherent stress, especially about like the body thing. It's like we live in this area of like movie stars and beautiful people, and there is such a stress placed on getting your pre-baby body back so soon. And we see on every single tabloid and social media, these, starlets and stuff who like look amazing like 4 weeks after, but like at what cost? Like what cost is it
Mhm.
that we're doing that to that both ourselves, mentally, physically, our baby's health? If you're calorie restricting to the point where you're losing all of this weight, like can you produce
Yeah.
milk? Like probably not very
Yeah.
effectively. So if you're
Mhm.
wanting to be able to breastfeed, you have to kind of give yourself a lot more leeway than we're being taught that we have to.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
Um,
and then we're going to be talking with Katie on Friday about some postnatal
yes.
nutrition topics. But like, let's talk about that in like terms of like just in light of a little bit of preparation. Like, I know that something that you were doing before you had your last was you were preparing things while you were still pregnant, like bone broths and foods and whatnot. Or
Mhm.
we could talk about like maybe the importance of like a meal train for new moms to be bringing people nourishment afterwards.
Yeah, I think the biggest, like, one of the biggest things to know is that once you have your baby, like, your world is like rocked, right? Like,
Mm.
you have this hormone change, you have a new life to care for, it's just really, really overwhelming. So anything you can do beforehand is the best. And just this is my second child we had 10 months ago, and I remember just being in tears because my husband left with my other child, and I'm like, I'm starving. You left me to starve. And it was like, I physically couldn't get up to get food. So, like,
Yeah.
having everything like there prepared is just so wonderful. But yeah, preparing a bone broth, like you said it's just that not depriving yourself. This is not the time to
Mhm.
deprive yourself. And I see it all too much where women want to get their lose the baby weight,
Mhm.
and this just isn't the time to do it. You're nourishing another human, you're still healing yourself, right? So
Yes.
the nutrient density is so important, the fat is so important.
Yeah.
And I know
And
Katie will get into all of that wonderful stuff.
100%. So like let's talk about like movement practices after, because we've kind of talked about like a little bit about like, preparation, but like, let's talk about like movement practices afterwards because, you lead
Yeah.
obviously pre and postnatal yoga classes, and a lot of people don't know what that is, and I'd love them to know more about it.
Yeah, so one of my favorite classes to teach, they're all favorite, but my very, very favorite is the
Mhm.
BirthFit Postpartum series. And that's when you can join about 6 weeks postpartum. You bring your baby. It's 2 classes a week for 8 weeks, or for 4 weeks, so 8 classes. Um, but we bring our body back to the most basic foundation of movement. So a lot of what we teach is based on dynamic neuromuscular stabilization and developmental kinesiology. And I know that's a mouthful, but all that means is we are returning our bodies to move innately the way that like we were programmed to move. So we mimic a lot of our baby's movements um,
Mhm.
in these corrective style exercises to work on a functional core. And the functional core is just using all of the musculature in the way that it's meant to work. One thing, and most people won't think of this as fitness is or movement is our breath. And I know you guys talked a little bit
Yes.
about breath, but every
It's
single
so
class
important.
we focus on breath. It's so
Yeah.
important. If your breathing pattern isn't normalized, no other movement pattern you do will be normalized. And it's like
Hmm.
you need your breath for so many things, just like real life, right? Like, I don't know. I guess after you have your baby, if you haven't experienced this yet, there's such a disconnection in the core.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know that I practiced like normalized breathing and like the diaphragmatic breath and intra-abdominal pressure, practiced that like for a year, over years. And after I had this last baby, it was like, it was gone. So like
Yeah.
bringing back that normalized breath helps not just like your nervous system, right? Like bringing down the nervous system, but also helps at movement patterns and things of like day-to-day life, like lifting the car seat into the car,
Yeah.
and not throwing out your back, or lifting your toddler when you're doing something else with the baby, so breath is super duper. It's like it's life, basically, the breath.
Yeah, it's literally like your reconnection. And that's, you said like, when afterwards you could have all of the awareness. And like we were saying with Courtney too, like somebody who's so aware of themselves and so
Mhm.
self-aware with their breath, their movement, their bodies. You can have somebody who does everything right or is an instructor in movement. But after pregnancy, between exhaustion, hormone changes, all the body changes that you've gone through the last
Mhm.
like 10 months, oftentimes people's brains and their bodies just like have a total disconnect, and people don't realize
Mhm.
how great that can be. It's kind of like, imagine if you were like in a cast for months on end, like you're probably not going to have a great connection to that arm anymore. Well,
Yeah.
after like the massive expansion of your body and all the hormones entailed, and then the contraction back of your body, oftentimes like our sense of like our spatial awareness is so messed up that we really need to go back to these basic corrective patterns in order to reconnect with these basic movements before doing things that are more complex. Reconnecting with our breath and the breath to movement before asking people to do more complex movements. And I think that's really important because people try to jump right back into their super complicated Pilates or CrossFit or jump back into running, but without doing foundational steps. And then they wonder why they're
Mhm.
in pain, or they're leaking every time they run,
Mhm.
or that prolapse isn't healing, or that diastasis isn't healing, but they didn't do anything foundational first.
Mhm. Yeah, and I like to say that being postpartum it's your reset button. This is a time where you can start from the base, like the foundation, and start building it up. Like I say this in all my classes. It's like you're not gonna ever have your pre-baby body back, and I get everyone's just like, oh, how dare you say that,
Yeah.
Um, but it can be better. It doesn't mean you're going to have this mom bod forever, but it literally means that you can start rebuilding the foundation to your body and your movement from the very beginning. So it's a wonderful, beautiful opportunity, but you have to do it in a functional and sensible way, right? Like you said, and not just go jump back into things. So that's what we do in our Birth Fit Postpartum series. And it's super duper, start super duper basic, but like also this is something for everybody. It's not just the pregnant body, right? Like
Right.
what we do. It's not just for someone that just had a baby. It's optimal for them because, like I said, this is where you're going to build the foundation. But this is like the way the body is supposed to move. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it's just good for everybody. Like everybody. Like,
And what's going to sound super weird, and not to be like a departure, but one of the things I was just talking about, one of the things we see clinically that isn't technically like pelvic floor, it's more in the orthopedic realm, is we see a lot of men who come in with lumbar disc problems. They've got herniated discs, bulge discs. And one of the first things I check
mhm,
with every single one of them is I check if they have an abdominal hernia. So a diastasis, which we're talking about with a new mom, like
mhm,
postpartum situation, is the exact same thing as an abdominal hernia. The tissue is thinned, separated, material can come out. And so I use birth fit principles and birth fit exercises with men who have abdominal hernias and really poor
mhm.
anterior core control to help them with that reconnection, because I know that those exercises are going to help them with those same principles and use the
Absolutely.
same thing, just different population.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know a lot of birth fit professionals have work with like the male population, even like
Hmm.
way older male population, just that have
Oh
the low
yeah.
back pain and all of that. And they use the same principles. So
Yeah. One of the guys I'm working with right now is 84 years old.
that's awesome.
And when he came in to see me, he had kind of been, kind of like relinquished himself to this fact of like, oh, I'm going to be living with epidurals for the rest of my life. Like every few months, I'm getting a spinal epidural and I'm having this pain and, wanting to be able to hold on to some of his youth and vitality, but really struggling with pain management. And
Mhm.
when we were able to regain that core control and gain control of breathing, abdominal stabilization, management of abdominal pressure, he told me this morning on a virtual that his pain's at a 1 out of 10. And he's like, I never thought I could do
Wonderful.
that, which is a delightful thing to hear. But, it kind of tells us again, like that this just isn't a female specific problem, even though that's what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. It's a human body thing.
Yes.
Yeah. I
So,
love that.
what are other things that you think are really important for women in like the postpartum phase to like, some considerations for
Um,
them, whether it's any of the birth fit
you know,
pillars?
Yeah, I just, and we go over this a lot in our Birth Fit Postpartum series, is like the whole mindset piece to this. It's like
Hmm.
you've heard maybe the quote when not only a child is born, but a mother is also born, right? And
Yes.
it's like there's just so much that goes into the motherhood or the parenthood transition that is unexpected and stressful and overwhelmingly good and bad, positive and negative. And I think the biggest piece is just like shifting the mindset to like what BirthFit always says, like slow is fast, take it slow, honor what like the present moment, the exact present moment, right? Versus looking into the future. And we use this all the time, like whether it's during labor, be in this present moment. Don't start looking forward or backwards. Same with postpartum, be in this present moment as best as you can, because that's just how you're going to get through by giving yourself like that grace that you need. I
Yeah.
it's and with my first child I didn't do that. I was very like, I gotta get this done, I gotta get this done, why am I not getting these things done, oh my god, like spinning out of control. And I work with so many moms who are in that same headspace that it's like it's just a new version of yourself and having to like transfer or transition into this new version and bring.
Hopefully sometime soon. But it's you go from this type A go go go
Mhm.
mentality, and like that's a really big change. But from what yourself and every other new mom that I'm close with tells me, it's like these moments go by so quickly, and by the time that you blink, your baby is 6 months old, 10 months old, and it's like you need to slow down to be able to enjoy some of those moments, and also realize that your capacity is shifted. You're no longer just taking care of yourself. Now you've got this
Mhm.
other, human that you have to be taking complete care of. And I think just all of us being a little kinder to ourselves. And if nothing else comes of Corona, I'm hoping that that's a shift of like all of us slowing down just a little bit and all of
Mhm.
us being a little kinder to ourselves, even if we aren't in that new mom period.
Absolutely.
We just had a
Absolutely.
question.
And I,
Any other advice for them?
oh yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Any, it says any other advice for the mental aspect of the few weeks after having baby?
Mhm.
Yes. I practiced doing 6 weeks and feeling massive PTSD. Yeah. I practiced a lying in period. So most cultures, most Eastern, like Asian cultures, they practice the first 40 days of just lying around, doing nothing, and it's actually honored for the woman to like not do anything. People cook their meals, they um, do the housework, take care of everything. It's the
Yeah.
basically the complete opposite of our culture. Like, okay, get back to it, go, 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 right? Um, and it's like honorable for them to just lie around and feed their baby.
Hmm.
So, with my second son just recently, I practiced. I try to do 40 days of the most minimal thing, but for the first 2 weeks, we just lied around. And I went on walks and hung out with my son, my toddler, but just being there with like my sole like purpose was to feed and bond with this baby, right? And I took away any sort of um, household responsibilities, um, and just kind of passed those on to like my family and my mom helped a lot. So that helped me the most because, like I said, with my first son, I was like, I need to get going. I need to do this. I actually was injured at birth, during birth with my first, and I couldn't do anything and I couldn't let go. I was still trying to do things. So this time around, I would just say that if you could practice that like 2 weeks of lying in, and like we call it like the modern day mom lying in, right? Because we can't sit around for 40 days. We just can't. I mean, like, especially if you have another child. Um, so doing as least amount as you can and taking the pressure off of yourself to do anything. And yeah, I would just say that that's something to really try to strive for, but it takes work. So now preparing for that, kind of line people up. Hopefully we can have supporters and help back in our homes soon. Um,
Yes.
but see what you can do to line up as much help as you can get, so that your sole purpose is to lie around with that baby and heal yourself and heal that and feed the baby.
And yeah, and just that, like you said, grace. I think that's such a huge
Hmm.
word for people to be thinking about is just not, I don't know, just not feeling like you have to do everything during that period.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, before we answer that question, there was something else you were going to say. Do you have any idea what it was? Because I don't.
Good luck. What were we just talking about? Dang it.
I
My
don't
brain
know.
works on like 3-minute intervals. No, I have no
Yeah,
idea.
totally fine.
Um,
Anything else that you want to follow that
God,
up
yeah.
with?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot, and just the biggest takeaway would just be, oh, I know what I was going to say. It
Oh,
popped back
yay.
in. So we were talking about, you know, giving and taking care of this new baby, right? And
Yeah.
that's like our sole job, but also the self-care part. I'm really, really big on staying connected to who you are. So there's this like harmony you have to find with not trying to be the person you were before your baby, because that's a little bit different, but to not be disconnected from yourself, like your true inner self, right? I know a lot of moms go off and do everything for their child and they forget about themselves. And I've actually worked with moms in like my goal coaching stuff, is when they're like, they have a kid that's like 8 and they're like, I don't know who I am anymore. So
Yeah.
not losing your sense of self, but also not trying to be who you were before your baby, if that makes any sense. Like keeping aligned with the values that you hold within, um, and really taking care of yourself and giving yourself the love that you need and taking the time and caring, the self-care acts and such like that. So it's like finding this harmony between, caring for a brand new baby and not putting everything into them, but also
Yeah.
keeping true to
A
yourself
little
too.
bit of yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think that's so important because how often do you and I hear that women are like, I just don't even know who I am anymore. They've like
absolutely, absolutely,
completely
and
lost
that's
sense of self. That leads to distress in its own right.
yeah,
So I love it. Is
absolutely,
there anything else
absolutely.
that you want to add to that?
No, I think we're good. Did you answer the question on here? I feel
I
like
did.
how soon after? Yeah, you can
Yeah.
take the Birth Fit postpartum series class. Feeling great, and we have a class
Yeah.
starting at like 5 weeks postpartum. I'm good for talking to you about that too. Yeah.
When is the next series starting, by the way?
I haven't planned. Oh, sorry, I should tell you. We do. We have one starting beginning of May, and that's online. I was like, we don't have one in
Okay.
person. We have one online starting, and
Mhm.
we've discounted the cost of that to half price, which
Okay.
is a wonderful deal. Um, and it's just, the whole online virtual thing isn't like I'm a hugger. I want to touch people. I want to be in
Yes.
person, but this is the next best thing. And if you've just had a baby, like you deserve the utmost of postpartum care as well. So we are offering that beginning May, Tuesdays and Fridays in May.
Okay. And
Yeah.
something that, I mean, we had this conversation just last weekend, and I'll kind of share this too, is that in my opinion, one of the best things that's coming out of this whole thing is this the ability for a lot of virtual things to be happening in a way that they weren't before. And a lot of the talks I'm doing, and obviously all of us are in Los Angeles today, but a lot of talks, like I'm talking with Charlie Weingoff tomorrow. He's located in Greenwich, Connecticut. And I spoke with, practitioners last week that are San Diego and Connecticut, New York. And with that, one of the best things is that people are getting more creative with like access to maybe programs or practitioners that
Hmm.
they didn't have access before. And just on Saturday, I'll share this. One of my really close friends and I were having a conversation. She's in the San Diego area and she's looking for postpartum support. And I was like, like this is a perfect time for you to get involved with like a birth fit postpartum series because it's virtual. She's having a hard time with three small children just getting out of the house for 15 minutes, like God bless her, let
Yeah.
alone like enough time to actually come to a class. And so being able to introduce her to you and Courtney and talk to her about virtual pre and postnatal yoga and virtual birth fit is really a blessing because honestly 6 months ago I may not have like even considered telling her that, knowing that like there's no way in hell she's getting from San Diego to Hermosa Beach. And so
Absolutely.
I think that that's really cool. And like, hopefully, once we get back to like normal, like some normalcy, I really hope that we go back to having the in-person classes. But I really hope that there's more virtual platforms for women too, because I think it's really giving us a new resource we could continue to use.
I absolutely agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. It's taken a lot for me to like shift out of my
Yeah,
like ways of wanting to be close to people,
I know.
but you're absolutely right. We can reach more and help more. Um, yeah, I love that.
I'll be really excited when we can hug again versus doing like elbow
Oh
high fives.
God. Oh, I know, I know.
But I mean, we're in touching professions. It kind of goes
I
with,
know.
goes with
Yeah,
part of it. But well,
absolutely.
can you tell people where they can find you, where they can find BirthFit South Bay, where they can find you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm at birthfitsouthbay.com.
Mhm.
On Instagram, it's birthfit_South Bay, or Nicole.Leigh, Leigh.Foster. Oh, you can probably see it somewhere on here. I don't know.
Probably
I
somewhere,
don't know.
but
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so that's where you can find me. All of our classes, updated classes right now, are on the BirthFit South Bay website. And then just regular birthfit.com, they
hmm
offer a bunch of wonderful online self-guided programs too.
sure. And
Yeah.
that's a great resource. And anyone who's coming in late, if you missed what Courtney had to say about the prenatal period, this story will be posted up on our feed for the next 24 hours. And feel free DM myself, Courtney, Nicole, with any ongoing questions. We're all more than happy to provide you
Yeah,
support. And
please do.
thank you so much again for coming in today. I know your life is
Of course.
crazy, so I really appreciate you
Coming in.
taking the
I'm
time.
I'm sitting in my bedroom right now with quiet time away from the kids. I'm cool. Let's do this every day.
Like every day, 4:30. I like it. I'm
Wine next
in.
time.
So nice to see your face.
Good to
Thanks
see you
again.
too, girl.
We'll talk soon.
All right, bye
All right.
everyone.
Bye.
See ya.